A convoy of black SUVs tore down the road, tires grinding against the blistering pavement. When the doors swung open, figures emerged. Crisp silk shirts, dark sunglasses masking unreadable eyes. They weren't here for fuel or food. They were here to take this place. But the cartel didn't know one thing. The truckers here weren't just men behind the wheel. Some carried a past the cartel would soon regret awakening. Before we dive in, let us know where you're tuning in from. If you love these stories, hit subscribe for more. Now let's get started. A scorching sun hung low over the highway, casting long shadows across the newly built truck stop near the U.S Mexico border. The air rippled with heat, making everything in the distance shimmer as if it were submerged in water, under a modest awning by the convenience store. A few drivers exchanged stories about their recent hauls, chuckling over minor mishaps that felt monumental on lonely stretches of asphalt. Their trucks, some battered, some gleaming, lined up in orderly rows across the broad parking lot. This was a place of respite, a safe haven where the rumble of engines usually subsided into friendly chatter, and the comforting rattle of coffee machines. No one imagined that on this punishingly hot afternoon, a threat bigger than any breakdown was rolling in. Maya, the owner of the truck stop, sat inside the air-conditioned office at the back of a small diner. She was reviewing supply documents, cross-checking delivery schedules, and planning improvements for the service station. A tall, dark-haired woman with unwavering eyes, she had worked tirelessly to turn this once empty patch of desert into a thriving way station. Drivers who passed through here felt an unspoken relief, knowing they could grab a decent meal, shower, and rest without worry, while dust motes danced in the beams of sunlight breaking through the wide windows. Maya put down her pen, glancing at the clock. It was nearly 4 in the afternoon, about the time she usually stepped out to greet the regulars and see if anyone needed assistance. Little did she know that beyond the horizon, an unwelcome convoy was hurtling toward her establishment at breakneck speed. The battered radio atop the counter hummed with static. A local music station fought to cut through the noise. Outside, a few men tinkered with engines in the repair bay. Others lounged in the diner exchanging tales of the open road, tales of breakdowns, deadlines, and the occasional brush with shady character. Brock Turner, a veteran trucker with streaks of gray in his beard, leaned against the diner door, hat tipped low over his forehead, eyes half closed as he enjoyed a few moments of peace. The scorching desert air pressed in from all sides, but the mood remained light. Suddenly, the roar of multiple engines shattered the lull. A line of black SUVs tore into the parking lot, wheels grinding against the rock-hard dirt. Everyone turned toward the disturbance. Engines this loud usually belonged to souped-up rigs or custom hot rods. But these vehicles had a menacing undertone that raised hairs on the back of every neck present. Maya froze in mid-step, setting aside her papers as she peered through the diner's window. At least 4 glossy black SUVs fanned out in a semicircle. Blocking the main exit, the lead vehicle braked hard, sending a plume of dust skyward. Out stepped a man with a rugged build and a short, dark beard, wearing a black silk shirt that gleamed under the merciless sun. A thick gold chain hung around his neck, catching the light with each movement. Behind him, 6 more men emerged, each one in dark clothing, bulletproof vests peeking from beneath unbuttoned shirts, heavy boots kicking up the dusty ground. Their sunglasses obscured any flicker of emotion, giving them a cold, predatory aura. The lead man strode forward like he already owned the place, his posture arrogant, gaze sweeping left and right as though assessing a new territory. The sun glinted off his necklace as he stopped in front of the diner door. Sergio Alvarez. He was known among some drivers for his ruthless reputation, if rumors were to be believed. He was the right-hand man to Diego Delgado, a name many only spoke in whisper. Sergio's presence here could only mean one thing: trouble. Silence fell across the lot. A group of truckers who had been chatting near a refueling station exchanged worried glances, but didn't dare approach. Their tools and half-finished repairs lay abandoned as they stepped back. Uneasy, the air felt heavier, as if a storm had just descended. Without hesitation, Sergio made a beeline for the diner's entrance. He shoved the swinging door aside, scanning the interior with a calculating gaze. A radio somewhere in the corner played faint music, which abruptly cut off when the trembling waitress at the counter instinctively switched it off. Cole Maddox, A tall, broad-shouldered man seated in a booth at the far end paused mid-sip of his coffee. He narrowed his eyes at this aggressive intrusion but remained silent, letting the stranger make the first move. Maya emerged from the back, smoothing down her shirt. Her expression changed from a polite welcome to guarded tension the moment she recognized Sergio. She stepped behind the counter, chin held high. "I don't recall inviting you here," she said, her tone measured but icy. Sergio ignored her remark, flicking his gaze around. "Quite a place you've got here, Val." His voice was low, laced with that smug confidence of a man used to getting what he wanted. "Diego likes it too. Sent me to finalize a few details." Maya folded her arms. "This truck stop isn't for sale." He let out a dismissive chuckle, then pulled a thick wad of banknotes from his back pocket, slamming it onto the counter with a flourish. "Who said anything about buying? This is just a friendly suggestion to help you see reason." His 6 companions loomed behind him, scanning the diners, their hands occasionally brushing over concealed firearms, as a not-so-subtle warning. For a heartbeat, the entire diner was silent. Then Maya reached out calmly, flicking the bundle of cash off the countertop with a sharp, cutting gesture. It fell to the floor unceremoniously. "I'm not interested in dirty money," she said in a dangerously steady voice. "Get out of my truck stop, Sergio." The tension thickened. People could practically feel it in their lungs, the dryness of the desert air now mingling with the sharp sting of confrontation. Sergio's expression darkened. Any hint of cordiality he'd forced earlier vanished. He turned his head slightly, addressing his men. "Looks like we'll have to do this another way." Outside, one of the men in black caught Sergio's signal and instantly strode toward the parked trucks. Brock Turner, who had been standing by one of the semis, quickly stepped forward. "Hey!" he barked. "You can't just..." Before Brock could say anything more, Sergio delivered a swift punch to his gut, knocking the wind out of the older man. 2 more cartel henchmen grabbed Brock by the arms, slamming him onto the scorching pavement. Brock tried to struggle, but a sharp kick to his side left him sprawled. The ring of onlookers, truckers and travelers alike, went pale, their eyes wide with a mix of fear and fury. But no one dared to intervene. These cartel members were armed, ruthless, and obviously prepared to spill blood. Maya pressed her palms onto the counter so hard her knuckles whitened. "Stop it," she shouted, preparing to rush around to help Brock. Yet Sergio shifted his stance in a blink, blocking her path. She could feel the menacing aura radiating off him. In the parking lot, 3 of Sergio's goons pulled out baseball bats from the back of their SUV. The first swung at a random truck's windshield, shattering the glass with a sickening crash. The second jammed his bat into a tire, puncturing it in a hissing burst. Another driver who tried to step in was met with a backhand to the face, sending him stumbling into a stack of crates. Fear rippled through the crowd. Anyone with half a mind could see these men were well versed in intimidation tactics. "Listen," Sergio's voice boomed, resonating through the diner and out into the parking area. "This is your only warning. Diego wants this place. If Val won't accept our generosity, we'll take it by force." He glowered at Maya, then at anyone in view. "You can either leave or get hurt. The choice is yours." Inside the diner, Cole Maddox slowly rose to his feet. He had been watching this unfold in tense silence, eyes never leaving Sergio's men as they vandalized trucks, shoved drivers and terrorized onlookers. A former military man turned long-haul truck. Cole usually kept a low profile, preferring quiet corners and solitary roads. But something in him refused to stand idle while these thugs brutalized people who had nothing to do with their demands. Sergio turned, noticing Cole stepping forward. The air seemed to crackle between them. "Who are you supposed to be?" Sergio asked, a sneer curling his lip. "A retired grunt? I see the way you stand. Must have been in the service, right? Newsflash, I've got 6 men armed to the teeth. You've got just yourself, old man." Cole met Sergio's gaze with a calm that belied a steady current of anger. "Sometimes 6 isn't enough," he said, voice low and resonant. The tension in the diner ratcheted up another notch. Even Sergio's men glanced at each other, unsure how to read Cole's composure. Brock lay groaning on the ground outside, blood trickling from his nose. The group of truckers had taken cover behind vehicles or retreated inside, some trembling with fear, others simmering with resentment. Sergio stepped closer to Cole, crossing into the diner fully, overshadowing one of the tables with his broad frame. "You think you can scare me?" I've seen bigger men than you break when they see the muzzle of a gun pointed at their head. Cole said nothing at first, simply kept his stand. When he did speak, his tone was measured, chilling. You might break some, but not everyone. A flicker of hesitation crossed Sergio's eyes. He was no stranger to intimidation, yet something about Cole radiated an unshakable confidence. For a split second, the tension teetered on the brink of full-blown violence. One of the cartel henchmen raised his bat, but Sergio waved a hand to hold him back. He sized Cole up, exhaling through his nose. "All right," he muttered, stepping backward. "You want to play hero? Fine, but I promise you, next time we come back, no one here is walking away without paying." Sergio jerked his chin at his men. "Let's go." As if on cue, the others followed. One tossed his baseball bat aside, cursing under his breath. Another slammed the trunk of the SUV shut, still glaring at the onlookers. They piled back into their vehicles, engines revving loudly. Sergio cast one last baleful glance at Maya, who stood behind the counter with her hands clenched, and then smirked at Cole. "You'll regret refusing us," he said, voice as icy as the glare in his eyes. The convoy of SUVs roared off, leaving clouds of dust swirling in their wake. Slowly, the people in the diner and the parking lot began to stir. A couple of truckers rushed to check on Brock, who was bruised and battered but conscious, spitting blood and cursing under his breath. Glass fragments crackled underfoot as someone knelt to pick them up. Frightened murmurs filled the air. Everyone wanted to know what had just happened, and if the threat was truly over. Maya hurried outside to help Brock, cursing herself for not being able to stop Sergio earlier. She felt a burning mix of anger and guilt. But when she glanced at Cole, she was struck by how calm he appeared. He was already kneeling next to Brock, checking the older man's injuries with the methodical composure of someone who'd seen far worse. Maya nodded at Cole, a silent gesture of gratitude. Drivers gathered in a wary circle, their faces etched with uncertainty. It didn't take a genius to see what lay on their minds. If Sergio and his men could do this in broad daylight, what horrors might they inflict under cover of darkness? Cole stood, dusted off his hands, and looked around. "We know they'll be back," he said quietly, his voice carrying an authoritative weight that demanded attention. "And next time, they won't bother with intimidation. They'll come for blood." A hush fell over the group. Some exchanged glances, a swirl of fear and resolve passing through them. The sun, now dipping lower in the sky, lent a red glow to the scene, an ominous reminder that daylight was fading, and new dangers could lurk in the approaching dusk. Maya helped Brock to his feet, gently guiding him to a bench by the diner wall. She then faced the crowd, her gaze resolute. Despite the upset and the violence that had just played out, she still held herself with unyielding strength. "This is our place," she declared, voice firm, despite the tremor of adrenaline. "We built it, we run it, and we won't be driven out. If they want a fight, we'll give them one. They'll never forget." Cole nodded in agreement. He didn't need to say much more. The fire in Maya's words spoke for everyone. But he did add one crucial statement, leveling his calm, intense gaze at the other trucker. "We stand together, or we fall alone." And that was it. The turning point. The moment when this ragtag community realized they couldn't rely on luck or law to protect them from Sergio Alvarez and the forces behind him. The seeds of resistance took root under the scorching afternoons. Despite the damage and the fear, a fierce resolve began to bloom among the truckers. They weren't just random men and women on the highways anymore. They had found a common cause that bound them together like steel. As the sky bled into evening, the sound of departing engines still echoed in the distance, but the dust left behind settled slowly on the battered trucks and shattered glass. A silent testament to the battle lines just drawn. Everyone knew that soon, those lines would be crossed again. Only next time, they'd be ready. The sun had begun its slow descent, painting the truck stop in long coppery shadows, when the roar of the cartel's SUVs finally faded. A tense hush filled the dusty air. For a moment, no one spoke. It was as though every driver, every worker, and every wandering traveler at Maya's truck stop was still reeling from the confrontation that had just taken place. Brock nursed a bruised rib, and a few other men helped patch up broken windshields or gather scattered debris. Cole Maddox, face set with grim resolve, called out to everyone from the entrance of the main building, urging them to gather in the large storage room that Maya occasionally used for meeting. One by one, the truckers followed him inside, dropping into battered folding chairs or leaning against crates of spare parts. The flickering overhead light cast deep shadows across their worried faces. Maya walked to the front. Standing beside Cole, Dante trailed her, arms crossed defensively. Cole wasted no time. "We all saw what happened today," he said, voice carrying the weight of an ex-soldier, accustomed to command. "That was just a taste. The cartel will come back, and if we're not ready, we'll die." A rustle of uneasy murmurs swept through the group. A couple of drivers looked at the door, contemplating flight. Maya's voice cut through the uncertainty, her tone unwavering. "We have nowhere else to go," she said firmly. "If we run, we'll spend the rest of our lives in fear." That frank declaration hit home. Eyes flicked between Cole and Maya, searching for any sign of doubt, but all they found was conviction. Slowly, heads began to nod. They knew she was right. Surrendering was no option. They would stand and fight. By the time dusk deepened into night, the entire truck stop had taken on an urgent, almost electric atmosphere. Reed Morgan, a wiry man with oil-stained hands, took charge of transforming ordinary semis and pickup trucks into instruments of war. He set up a makeshift workshop near the service bay, where overhead lights cast a yellowish glow on piles of steel plating, welding tools, and open containers of spare parts. "All right," Reed announced, pushing up his goggles. "Let's see if we can turn some of these rigs into tanks." A half-dozen truckers gathered around him, each with different levels of mechanical experience. Some were old hands at fixing engines, others only knew how to change a tire or patch up a leaky fuel line. But under Reed's direction, they worked with surprising efficiency. First came the reinforced doors. Reed showed them how to weld steel plates onto the driver and passenger sides of certain trucks, covering vulnerable areas where bullets could penetrate. Sparks flew as bright arcs of molten metal sizzled in the dry evening air. Next, they replaced ordinary tires with special puncture-resistant ones, adding an extra layer of rubber and steel belts that might hold up under gunfire or shrapnel. "We're also going to need a plan for dealing with heavily armored vehicles if they bring them," Reed muttered. He glanced around for a moment, then pointed to a few large metal spikes a driver had discovered in a scrap heap. "We'll mount those on some front bumpers, turn the trucks into battering rams. If we hit them hard enough, we can tip over lighter SUVs, or at least cause major damage." In another corner of the service bay, Dante Cruz meticulously checked on vehicles that had already suffered from the cartel's vandalism. A battered pickup with shattered windows was fitted with a makeshift protective grille up front. He replaced the tires on a second rig, patching bullet holes in the radiator. Throughout it all, a determined camaraderie thrummed in the air. A wiry young trucker leaned in, eyeing a half-filled drum of gasoline. "What do we do with all that?" Reed wiped sweat from his brow. "Fire can be a weapon," he admitted, grimacing. "We can rig up improvised incendiary devices if we have to, but let's not blow ourselves up in the process." "All right," the young man nodded, swallowing hard. Clearly this was no ordinary job for him or anyone else. They were truckers, not mercenary. Yet the line between civilian and soldier was blurring rapidly. Night settled fully, bringing a crispness to the desert breeze. Sparks from welding torches danced like fireflies in the gloom. By the time they finished the first wave of modifications, 2 trucks and 1 pickup were fitted with reinforced steel plates, sharpened bumpers, and extra tanks of fuel that could be ignited as a last resort measure. Exhausted though they were, a sense of guarded pride filled the group. They might not be a professional army, but they were resourceful. "There's no turning back now," Reed muttered to Dante, once they paused for a break. "We either do this right, or we'll get buried out here." Dante nodded in agreement. "At least we won't go down without a fight." While Reed and his team forged their mobile armor, Maya paced in her small office, phone pressed to her ear. She was calling in favors, old connections she'd hoped never to contact again. Each call felt like a tightrope walk between desperation and caution. Some of these people had ties to the underworld, men and women who owed her a debt, or grudging respect. "Mexico says Diego's gearing up," one grizzled voice told her across the crackling line. "He's furious about what happened at your truck stop. Word is he's pulling together men from across the region. You can expect heavier firepower next time." Another source warned her about potential armored vehicles and heavier weapons. The thought of facing down assault rifles, possibly even rocket launchers, made her stomach tighten, but she squared her shoulders and kept asking questions. By the time she ended the last call, Maya had gleaned enough to confirm her worst fears. The cartel planned a full-scale retaliation. Meanwhile, in a back corner of the diner, Liam Hayes, a tall man with an unassuming demeanor and a laptop balanced on his knees, typed furiously. He had hacked into certain communication lines rumored to be used by Marco Delgado,
Scraps of coded messages flashed on his screen. Most were mundane references to local deals or shipments, but then he found what he was looking for. Midnight strike. 2 teams, flanking approach. Marco leading Team A. Personally, Liam felt adrenaline jolt his system. He cross-referenced the rough coordinates mentioned in the notes with a local map. It matched the truck stop location exactly. "Cole," he called out, beckoning the ex-soldier closer. "You're going to want to see this." Liam explained everything. The cartel was preparing to attack around midnight, splitting their force into 2 columns, one from the north, one from the west. Marco Delgado himself would lead the operation, presumably to avenge the humiliation of earlier that day. Cole set his jaw. "They're not wasting time, are they?" Liam shook his head. "No, and they're coming heavy." That piece of intelligence was the final puzzle piece. The entire group now knew exactly when and how their enemy intended to strike, giving them a precious advantage they could not afford to squander. Armed with the knowledge of the impending midnight raid, Cole quickly called for another assembly outside, this time under the moonlit sky.
The rancid smell of burnt rubber and leaking fuel still lingered from earlier incidents, but the men and women gathered with renewed determination. "All right," Cole began, addressing the circle of anxious faces. "We have a few hours before midnight. That's not long, but enough time to learn some basics." He motioned to the nearest semi, which was now fitted with steel plates along its side. "First rule, use your rigs to control the battlefield. If we line them up, leaving only narrow choke points, we can force the cartel to come at us in smaller numbers. That gives us a fighting chance." He spent the next quarter hour demonstrating how a single truck could become a fortress if positioned correctly. Pull it sideways, block off an entrance, or wedge it between 2 buildings. The wide front grille, reinforced with welded steel, could act as a ram or a protective shield. A couple of drivers tested the technique, edging a big rig into place under Cole's guidance. Next, Cole turned to the improvised weaponry. He displayed crowbars, chains, and heavy wrenches. "We're short on guns, so we use what we have. A chain can trip or disarm a man with a rifle, if you surprise him. A crowbar can knock aside a pistol or smash through a windshield. Don't hesitate. Cartel won't." Noah Grayson, the youngest driver in the group, shifted uneasily. "I've never fought anyone in my life," he admitted, voice trembling. "I'm not sure I can do this." Cole gave the kid a grim nod. "I get it. None of us asked for this. But if you want to live, if you want your friends to live, fear can't stop you. Practice what I showed you." He demonstrated a simple 2-handed grip with a length of pipe, how to swing it effectively, and how to pivot to maintain balance. Noah nodded, swallowing hard. He tried a few swings, each one more confident than the last. Adrenaline and desperation could turn even the most timid into a defender. "All right," Cole concluded. "They're coming at midnight. We still have traps to set." With the threat of an imminent assault, the truckers fanned out across the property, each assigned a key role in fortifying the truck stop. Reed, still riding high on the urgency of mechanical transformations, orchestrated the formation of a makeshift fortress wall by parking several semis side by side, their trailers forming an imposing barricade near the main entrance. "We'll force them to approach through here," he explained, gesturing to a narrow corridor left open intentionally. "If they try smashing through elsewhere, they'll meet a half-ton of steel in their way." Liam installed a network of small security cameras that fed into his laptop, each perched on rooftops or hidden behind signposts to monitor blind spots. The black and white feeds flickered, but it was better than nothing. Maya moved from station to station, offering water, encouragement, and the occasional extra piece of metal plating to anyone who needed it. Some of the truckers laid down spike strips crafted from old nails hammered through wooden boards. They carefully concealed these traps under tarps or thin layers of dirt. The logic was simple: punctured tires would halt or slow the cartel's vehicles, funneling them into kill zones where the truckers could strike back with relative safety. Others spread oil slicks in strategic locations, well aware of how slippery the ground would become if a speeding SUV tried to maneuver there. By the time they finished, the truck stop resembled a ramshackle fortress. The once inviting neon sign that read "Welcome Travelers" flickered ironically above reinforced walls of steel and the silhouettes of armed men and women patrolling the perimeter. An unmistakable tension gripped the air, the kind that precedes a storm. Every face glimmered with sweat, either from the desert heat or the knowledge that soon they would be fighting for their lives. Cole took a deep breath, then climbed atop one of the modified semis. From that vantage point he surveyed the barricades. The spike-laden paths, the ring of trucks that formed their final line of defense. It wasn't perfect. They were outgunned, outmanned, and outspent, but they had surprise, cunning, and desperation. "Midnight's coming," he muttered to himself, tightening his grip on the radio in his hand. "Let's see if we can make them regret showing up." Midnight approached like a creeping specter. Out in the desert beyond the truck stop's lights, shadows lengthened and merged into inky blackness. Somewhere in that vast darkness, Marco Delgado was rallying his troops for the revenge he'd promised. At a small dirt clearing almost 10 miles from the truck stop, 2 SUVs idled with their lights off. Marco Delgado stood in the beam of a single flashlight, addressing his 15 hired guns, some ex-military, others mere criminals with a taste for violence, listened intently. "Remember what happened earlier," Marco growled, the anger barely contained in his voice. "They killed Raul Navarro. That's not going unanswered." A murmur of assent rippled through the group. They'd heard the rumors. A band of truckers, led by some ex-soldier, had managed to inflict major damage on their operation. To men accustomed to easy intimidation, such a defeat was unthinkable. Marco gestured at a rough map spread across the hood of an SUV. The pencil-drawn lines indicated the truck stop's perimeter, fueling stations, diner, and some outbuildings. "Team 1 will circle north. Team 2 will come in from the west. I'll lead Team 1 personally." He tapped on the map. "We hit them hard and fast. No negotiations. No mercy. Diego wants that place. And he wants every last one of those drivers to either submit or die." A short man with a scar across his jaw raised a question. "What if they're better prepared this time?" Marco's expression darkened. "Then we'll show them what happens when you defy the Delgado name." He patted the side of a black SUV. This one had an armored front grille and bullet-resistant glass. Inside lay a small arsenal of rifles, pistols, and even a few hand grenades. "We have the advantage of firepower. Once we break through their initial defenses, the rest will fold." The men shuffled, nodding to each other. None doubted the outcome. With Raul gone, Marco wanted blood. The promise of retribution burned bright in every look they exchanged. They loaded up, quietly checking their weapons. As the desert air pressed in around them, engines roared to life. Headlights stayed dimmed as they moved out in a silent convoy, splitting off into 2 columns. Their destination, Maya's truck stop, where Cole and the others waited under the flickering neon sign. Unbeknownst to the cartel, the defenders had spent every minute readying for this very moment. An uneasy stillness blanketed the truck stop, broken only by the soft hum of generators and the occasional clink of metal as someone adjusted a makeshift barricade. Cole Maddox stood near the diner's entrance, eyes scanning the darkness, while Liam crouched inside behind a laptop, monitoring camera feeds. Maya, armed with a shotgun, took up a position on the second-floor landing of the main building, giving her a vantage point over the parking lot. Brock, his injured arm hastily bandaged, refused to sit idly by. He manned a vantage point and a half-repaired semi. Shortly after midnight, Liam's voice crackled over the radio. "Movement. 2 directions," he whispered. "North and west, just like we suspect." Cole radioed a confirmation to everyone. "Stay low, don't reveal yourselves until they're committed." Through the grainy camera feeds, they saw shapes moving. A handful of men creeping along the perimeter fence. Another group crawled practically on their bellies, trying to exploit the meager cover of low brush. The defenders' adrenaline spiked as they fought the urge to open fire prematurely. Suddenly, muzzle flashes lit up the darkness. The cartel had decided to open hostilities, perhaps guessing they'd already been spotted. Bullets raked across the main storefront, shattering the protective boards they'd hastily nailed over windows. Shards of wood and glass rained to the ground. "Contact! Contact!" Someone yelled. Tension snapped into action. Noah Grayson ducked behind a concrete barrier, heart hammering. He clutched a length of heavy chain, recalling Cole's advice. "Wait for them to get close." A second later, a bullet pinged off the concrete, sending sparks in all directions. From a vantage point behind the barricaded semis, Reed Morgan revved the engine of their makeshift armored truck. He waited for the signal, eyes flicking between side mirrors, aware that a single miscalculation could cost them everything. The time came soon enough. Now, Cole's voice barked over the radio. Reed slammed the accelerator. The truck lurched forward, steel bumpers smashing through a line of flimsy crates they'd intentionally placed to look like part of the fortification. The unsuspecting cartel men ahead scrambled. Some lost their footing on the slippery patches of oil the defenders had laid down.
Others encountered spike strips, or boards laden with nails. Cursing as they realized their boots or tires were punctured, gunfire intensified. Tracers streaked across the night sky. Inside the diner, plates rattled off tables. Maya squeezed off a shot from her shotgun at a man darting for cover behind a row of tires. He yelped and collapsed, his weapon clattering away. Nico Vargas, perched on the roof of a lower outbuilding, flung a heavy container from above, straight onto the hood of an SUV that was gunning forward. The metal container crashed with a deafening crunch, pinning the driver. Smoke and sparks erupted as the engine sputtered and died. Despite these initial victories, the cartel force pressed on. A group of 6 men advanced near the diner, firing in controlled bursts, each muzzle flash illuminating their grim faces. Cole slid out from behind a turned-over table, snapping off shots with his rifle. 2 cartel gunmen dropped, but the rest scattered, seeking new angles of attack. "Keep them bottled up," Cole commanded over the radio. Their plan hinged on containing the cartel forces within the kill zones. If the attackers spread out too far, the defenders' advantage would vanish. The attacking group from the west faced another barrier. The line of semis parked close together. They tried to find a gap large enough to squeeze through. That was when Reed's armored truck roared again, ramming the side of one semi to block them further. The men inside that attacking SUV recognized they were trapped and began firing frantically at Reed's windshield. The reinforced glass spider web but held, for now caught in a hail of gunfire. The cartel's carefully orchestrated plan started to fracture. Some of their own men yelled conflicting orders, while others tried to retreat under the barrage of improvised defenses. Smoke began to linger in the air, carrying the acrid smell of spent gunpowder and scorched rubber. Lights flickered across the truck stop, half-illuminating silhouettes locked in deadly combat. Cole paused behind a bullet-riddled steel drum to assess the chaos. So far his people were holding the line, but they couldn't let up. He spotted a fresh wave of cartel reinforcements surging in from the north approach. Weapons at the ready, he keyed his radio again. "Slow them down. Use the traps. If they get through, we're finished." Amid the swirling chaos, the name Raul Navarro rang out from frantic cartel radio chat. Cole had heard that name before. He was rumored to be Marco's most trusted lieutenant, a man who coordinated many of the cartel's local operations. If Raul fell, it might break the attackers' resolve. Cole left Reed and Maya to handle the direct firefight, and began creeping along a line of parked trucks. He moved low, careful to remain in the shadows cast by flickering security lights, rifle in hand. He advanced toward a faint voice barking orders. Someone standing on the roof of an SUV, shouting directions into a handheld radio. As he got closer, Cole's eyes made out the figure, a lean man wearing a dark tactical vest. He had a radio pressed to his ear, scanning the battlefield with hawk-like intensity. Bullets and shouts mixed into a cacophony around them. That had to be Raul Navarro. In a fluid motion, Cole hopped onto the back of a battered pickup, then hoisted himself onto the roof of a parked trailer. From this vantage point, he watched Raul waving his free arm, gesturing for reinforcements. The man seemed fully absorbed in the chaos, unprepared for an attack from above. Quietly slinging his rifle behind him, Cole drew the combat knife strapped to his belt. He took a breath, narrowing his focus. Swift, silent, lethal. He had to strike before Raul did others. He leapt across the small gap, landing just behind the cartel lieutenant. Raul must have sensed the disturbance because he spun, eyes wide. But it was too late. Cole slammed a forearm around the man's neck, clamping tight. The radio tumbled from Raul's hand, clattering onto the SUV's hood. Raul flailed, elbowing Cole's ribs with surprising strength. They grappled, nearly toppling off the SUV. The radio crackled with some panicked voice. Raul, come in." But Raul could only manage choked gasps. Cole pressed his advantage, hooking a leg around Raul, forcing him to lose balance. A flash of steel, Cole brought the knife in a swift arc, sinking it deep into Raul's side, just below the rib cage.
The man let out a guttural scream, muffled by the roar of overlapping gunfire. With a furious twist, Cole yanked the blade out, and Raul's body sagged. Blood drenched his vest and spattered the SUV's roof. His eyes rolled back, breath gurgling in his throat. Raul, a nearby cartel gunman, shouted in alarm. Sprinting toward the SUV, Cole quickly withdrew behind the trailer's edge. The newly arrived gunman froze at the sight of Raul's motionless form. "Shit," he hissed. Fear flickered in his face as he realized their key commander had been taken out. He fired a few wild rounds in Cole's general direction, but the ex-soldier was already gone. That was the tipping point. With their lieutenant dead, the already strained coordination among the cartel fighters disintegrated further. Many broke into small groups, retreating under the relentless barrage of the truckers' improvised defenses. Others fired in short, panicked bursts before seeking any gap to escape. In the distance, Cole caught sight of Marco, who was shouting into a radio, presumably trying to salvage the operation. Then, as the defenders pressed harder, Marco roared an order that cut above the gunfire. "Fall back, everyone, fall back, now." Cole took in a shuddering breath of smoky air and signaled to his people. They'd done it. They had shattered the cartel's first major assault. But a cold part of him knew this was far from over. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to support us. As the last echoes of gunfire faded into the desert night, the scene at the truck stop resembled a war zone. Smoke curled from the hoods of damaged vehicles. Empty bullet casings glittered under the harsh floodlights. Jagged shards of broken glass crunched beneath boots. The tang of sweat, blood, and burnt oil lingered heavily in the air. Maya hopped down from her vantage point on the second floor, shotgun still clutched in her hands. Her hair clung to her forehead, and her breathing was ragged, but her eyes glowed with fierce determination. She started making her way among the scattered defenders, helping where she could, everywhere. Signs of destruction abounded. The main diner windows blown out, leaving behind twisted metal frame. A row of semis, some peppered with bullet holes, others smoldering from small fires that had erupted after gasoline leaks. The fueling station kiosk riddled with holes, its neon sign flickering ominously. Despite the damage they had held, Reed slumped against his armored truck, which bore fresh scars where bullets had pinged off the steel plating. With a tired grin, he muttered, "Guess it works." Noah Grayson, adrenaline still coursing through his veins, looked almost dazed. His chain was slick with dust and grime, but he'd managed to fend off an attacker at close range. "I did it," he stammered, half in awe, half in horror at the realization that he'd stood his ground. Cole wiped sweat from his brow, scanning the lot for casualties. "Any wounded?" A few voices answered. Brock. He clutched his upper arm, the bandage from the earlier injury now blood-soaked where a stray bullet grazed him. It wasn't life-threatening, but he winced with every movement. Another driver, a middle-aged man named Troy Beckett, limped out from behind a battered trailer, a bullet lodged in his calf. Dante helped prop him up, searching for a makeshift medkit. One by one, the defenders regrouped near the diner, forming a small circle to assess the damage. Maya's face tightened with guilt when she saw the bullet holes in the walls and the shattered tables inside. She gently set her shotgun aside. "I'm sorry," she said hoarsely to no one in particular. "This all happened because I refused them." Cole stepped toward her. "No," he said firmly. "Don't blame yourself. The cartel was always going to do this. If not now, then tomorrow. You stood up for what's yours." She nodded, exhaling. "I just hate that people are hurt, that our place is in ruins." Cole rested a reassuring hand on her shoulder. "We won this round. We'll rebuild. And if they come again, we'll be ready." A faint cheer went up from a few of the truckers. They were battered, bruised, but alive, and that small miracle bolstered their courage. Though they'd faced an onslaught of professional criminals armed to the teeth, the truckers had prevailed, proving that determination, cunning, and a bit of luck could tip even the most lopsided odds. Liam emerged from behind a scorched sedan, laptop tucked under one arm. "There's chatter on their channels," he reported. "They're pulling back for now, but we all know they'll regroup. We need to brace ourselves for the next strike." A hush settled over them as the realization sank in. This was merely the beginning. Raul Navarro might be gone, but Marco Delgado and his father, Diego, weren't finished. Not by a long shot. The battered truck stopped, ringed with the wreckage of a ferocious battle, stood testament to the unthinkable might of the cartel, and to the unwavering grit of those who refused to bow to it. As the group disbanded, some set about extinguishing small fires or dragging away smashed vehicles, while others tended to the wounded. The clock ticked past 2 a.m. and the desert wind picked up, sweeping away the worst of the smoke into the star-filled sky. Despite the heaviness of the moment, an undercurrent of relief pulsed through the battered defenders. They had survived, yet each person there knew that, in the lingering darkness, a greater storm was brewing. Their victory tonight would ignite the cartel's fury, and when the sun rose on this desert tomorrow, the war they had stumbled into would only intensify. News of the truck stop ambush hit Diego Delgado like a sledgehammer. He stood in his luxurious estate, an isolated villa near the border, listening to Marco's terse update over the phone. The final detail made Diego's blood boil. They had lost Raul Navarro, and the truckers had defeated a well-armed assault force. He ended the call abruptly, letting silence hang in the lavish living room. Rich, embroidered drapes framed floor-to-ceiling windows, and expensive artwork adorned the walls. But in that tense moment, none of it mattered. Diego clenched his jaw, forcing himself to think. He was no fool. Repeated direct attacks might only strengthen Cole Maddox and his crew's resolve. Their victory suggested they had more than luck on their side. "We underestimated them," he murmured, pacing across a marble floor. "They're not just random drivers with a few shotguns." His right-hand man, Sergio Alvarez, still nursing bruises from the previous confrontation, stood at a respectful distance. "What do we do now, Marco?" he asked quietly. Diego's dark eyes flicked up, sharper than any blade. "They want to fight? Fine, but we won't charge in like bulls again. We'll break them from the inside, make them doubt everything. Fear is the most potent weapon we have." He outlined his plan: psychological warfare. If the truckers believed they were safe behind barricades and armed trucks, then the cartel would prove safety was an illusion. Pressure them from unexpected angles, erode their courage, and make them question each other's resolve. Sooner or later someone would crack, maybe several, and once paranoia set in, the dominoes of their unity would topple. Diego's goal became chillingly clear: shatter the truckers' morale, sow discord, and force Maya Alvarez to surrender the truck stop. He would personally orchestrate each step, leaving Cole and his allies in a state of dread, never sure where the next blow would land. Sergio nodded, face grim. "They won't see it coming," he said. Almost proud to serve as the architect of such fear, Diego allowed himself a thin smile. Tactics were changing, but the outcome would remain the same. The truck stop would belong to him, and the truckers would kneel or die. Within a day, cartel foot soldiers began tailing not just the truck stop defenders, but also their families. Some of the truckers lived hours away in small border towns. Others had families scattered in different states. It didn't matter. Diego was determined to prove no distance was safe. Noah Grayson was out back behind the diner when he felt his phone vibrate. He checked it, expecting routine messages. Instead, he went pale. The screen displayed a photo of his wife, Mia, and their toddler, Liam, strolling in a supermarket aisle. Someone had taken the picture from only a few feet behind them. Another message followed: "Nice family." It would be a shame if anything happened. Noah's heart pounded. Cold sweat gathered at his temples. He hurried inside the diner, phone clutched in trembling hand. Cole and Maya spotted him immediately. "Noah, what's wrong?" Cole asked, a chill creeping down his spine at the look on the younger man's face. Noah showed them the photos, voice shaking. "They found my family. What do I do?" Maya swore under her breath. She had dreaded this possibility from the start. Cartels often struck at loved ones to break the will of anyone who dared resist. They soon realized Noah wasn't the only one. Another driver, a middle-aged man named Troy Beckett, received a short video clip on his phone. It showed two masked cartel enforcers standing outside his modest home. One lifted the camera to reveal the house number, while the other waved mockingly. The implication was clear: "We know where you live." As these messages multiplied, a cloak of fear descended upon the trucks. Several drivers began murmuring about leaving. "We have no choice," one insisted. "My wife and kids. I can't risk them for this place." Cole interceded, gathering everyone in the workshop. His voice was firm but tinged with empathy. "I understand your worry, believe me. But if we pack up and run, the cartel wins. They will keep using the same tactics, controlling everything through fear. We stand a better chance if we hold our ground together." Reed Morgan rubbed his forehead. "But how do we protect people who aren't even here?" "We coordinate," Cole replied. "We warn them, get them to safe locations if we can. Some of us have contacts, former military, ex-cops, who might help shield our families. But scattering and giving up means the cartel gains the truck stop and gains more power. Then no one will ever be safe." It was a grim reality. Yet the truckers, one by one, began to realize the only way out was through. They tightened their watch on communications, prepared to relocate any endangered relatives,
and resolved to stand firm. Cartel intimidation was working. Yes, but not to the extent of shattering the group's determination. At least, not yet. Late one evening, just as the sky turned dusky orange, and a semblance of calm settled over the truck stop, a violent blast rocked the parking lot. Flames shot up from one of the far corners, where Brock Turner had left his truck. Cole and several others sprinted outside, hearts pounding in their ears. They found Brock's truck engulfed in a raging inferno, thick black smoke curling into the twilight. The heat was blistering, fueled by gasoline that had somehow ignited in the explosion. Sparks crackled against the metal framework, and the stench of burning rubber stung everyone's nostrils. By the time they managed to douse the flames with extinguishers and a fire hose, the truck was a charred husk. Then Dante spotted something on the ground, a half-scorched piece of paper.
The words scrawled on it read, "This time it's the truck. Next time it's you." Brock stared. Slack-jawed, I was about to check the engine earlier, but I got sidetracked. His knees almost buckled with the realization that he could have been inside when it blew. A ripple of panic spread among the bystanders. This wasn't a random scare tactic. Someone had deliberately planted an explosive device to send a direct message. The tension soared. A few men cursed under their breath, while others looked around anxiously, half expecting another blast. "I can't do this," muttered one of the newer drivers, eyes darting to the exit. "It's too dangerous. My family, my life. I'm sorry." Cole inhaled slowly, stepping between the man and his truck. "We're all afraid, but if you run, the cartel will only gain more ground. They're counting on fear to scatter us." Still, the explosion left everyone shaken. A subdued hush fell over the group as they realized how far Diego was willing to go. Their enemy had escalated the conflict, and the next escalation could mean loss of life. Facing persistent shortages of ammo and gear, Maya had tapped into an old contact she trusted to supply weapons. One balmy evening, she set off in a modest pickup under the guise of picking up repairs, hoping to keep the transaction quiet. The desert highway stretched out darkly, only punctuated by the occasional flicker of distant headlights. But as she neared a bend in the road, a black van swerved into her path, forcing her to brake hard. Before she could even reverse, 4 men in ski masks jumped out. They yanked the door open, ignoring her furious struggles, and dragged her into the van. A single muffled scream was all she managed before a rough hand clamped over her mouth. Back at the truck stop, hours passed without Maya's return. Cole grew restless, scanning the horizon and checking radio frequencies. Then came the dreaded moment. A message pinged on his phone from an unknown number. It contained 2 photos, one showing Maya, hands bound, bruises on her face, her eyes blazing with defiance. Another displayed text, "Hand over the truck stop if you want her alive." Cole slammed a fist against a battered countertop. He alerted everyone with a grim expression. "Maya's been taken," he announced. A murmur of horror rippled through the drivers. Already on edge from the explosion, they now faced the possibility of losing the one person who'd held them all together. Cartel's demands were explicit: relinquish control of the entire operation, or Maya would pay with her life. Cole Maddox felt the weight of everyone's eyes upon him. They had done their best to defend the truck stop, but Maya's abduction proved purely defensive measures were no longer enough. The cartel had them cornered psychologically, pushing them to the brink. Now, they had to take the offense. He summoned Reed, Dante, Liam, and any remaining drivers who hadn't fled in fear. "We can't just barricade ourselves. If we do nothing, they'll pick us off one by one, or use Maya as leverage until we cave." Some looked unnerved, but no one disagreed. The possibility of losing Maya spurred them to action. "So here's the plan," Cole said, voice tight with anger. "We find out where they're holding her and hit them before they can tighten security. We strike fast, hard, and we show them we're not going to roll over." Noah Grayson, still shaken by threats to his own family, clenched his fists. "Count me in." Gradually, the fear they had endured transformed into steely resolve. If the cartel wanted a fight, then it was a fight they would get. And this time, the truckers would bring the war to the cartel's doorstep. In the aftermath of Maya's kidnapping, the truck stop fell into a somber hush. No one lingered over meals or chit-chatted about route. Instead, they prepped gear with grim purpose, checking weapons and going over every scrap of intel they could gather. Tension hung in the air as thick as desert dust. Liam Hayes set up his laptop at the diner's corner booth. Hacking through known cartel communication lines, dim lamplight illuminated his furrowed brow. At last he looked up. Relief mingled with concern. "Found her," he said, voice hushed but charged with urgency. His screen displayed a satellite map of a decrepit warehouse near the Mexican border. Circled in red, multiple routes fed into it. A vantage that suggested the cartel used it as a local hub for smuggling runs. Surveillance from scattered phone pings confirmed Maya was likely held inside. Reed Morgan, arms crossed, peered over Liam's shoulder. "Any idea how many men they've got?" "Plenty," Liam responded. "From what I can tell, they have layered security, fences, armed guards, possibly watchtowers, and Marco Delgado is in charge of the entire operation." At the mention of Marco's name, Cole's eyes narrowed. He recalled their last face-to-face encounter. Marco had escaped, vowing retribution. Now, ironically, Cole was the one coming for him. They spread a large map of the area on the diner counter. "We'll hit them before dawn," Cole declared, tapping a spot that marked the warehouse. "Reed, you'll drive our armored truck right through their perimeter if we can. Break their fences, disrupt their defenses. Dante and I will move in from behind. We'll get Maya and cut off anyone trying to block our exit." Noah Grayson wiped sweat off his brow, nerves strung tight. "And you and Liam handle ranged support," Cole replied. "Liam's the sniper. You'll cover him. Keep the exfil route clear. If they bring out backup or heavy weaponry, you two can slow them down from a distance." "Understood." Noah swallowed hard but nodded. "Yes, sir." Cole scanned the group. "We need to do this fast. If we're bogged down, they'll likely move Maya or, worse, kill her. Once we grab her, we extract immediately." Reed jabbed a thumb at the map. "What if we get the chance to put Marco down?" A flicker of cold determination crossed Cole's face. "We take removing Marco cripples the cartel's presence here. That means less threat to us in the long run." They agreed, each person rattled yet committed. The plan was dangerous, but they had little choice. Their only advantage lay in surprise and speed, ingredients that, if used well, could topple even the formidable fortress the cartel had built. In the garage that night, the clang of metal against metal reverberated like a warrior's drumbeat. Reed and Dante worked side by side, transforming an ordinary semi into a fearsome juggernaut. Welders sparked in the dim space, forging improvised armor plating to shield the engine block and windshield. The original steel plating had held up well during the previous assault. Now, they added more ballistic materials around the cabin, layering thick polycarbonate over windows. Reed retrofitted a pedestal mount in the cargo bed for a machine gun, an M60 that Cole had managed to procure through an old military contact. "We won't have the luxury of sitting still," Reed remarked, "so we'll need to shoot on the move. That means you, or someone, stands behind the mount, braced, while the truck plows through whatever they've got." Dante tested the swivel action of the M60. "We got these special tires ready, right?" he asked, glancing at a set of thick off-road wheels, each studded with run-flat technology. "No sense in having the best armor if a stray bullet can pop our tires mid-raid." Reed nodded, welding mask perched on his forehead. "We're covered, steel-belted, bullet-resist, not guaranteed, but better than standard. Just watch out for heavier calibers or grenades. Nothing is foolproof." Some distance away, others prepped personal weapons. Cole meticulously cleaned his Sig Sauer P226 and loaded magazines for his. Dante double-checked the shells for his Remington AD-70, packing a handful of smoke grenades he'd crafted from basic canisters. Noah carried a compact AR-115, a far cry from the chain he'd used in earlier fights. He no longer looked uncertain. Fear was still there, but overshadowed by a burning need to rescue Maya. Liam tested the scope on his Remington 700 sniper rifle. In the weeks since their troubles began, he had proven invaluable, dropping cartel gunmen from a distance with near-flawless precision. A hush of collective anticipation settled around them, broken only by the hum of machinery. The tension was palpable, fear, tempered by resolve. Though the truck stop had faced warlike skirmishes, this was something else. They were deliberately entering the cartel's stronghold. If they failed, the cartel would eradicate the entire community in retribution. Finally, the truck glistened under the fluorescent lamps. An intimidating beast,
all steel edges and reinforced angles. Reed wiped sweat from his brow, stepping back to admire their handiwork. "If this doesn't scare them," he said in a low voice, "nothing will." Cole approached, resting a hand on the welded armor. "We're fighting more than just their guns. We're fighting their entire empire. Let's make it count." He looked around at each face, seeing courage reflect back at him. They would drive into hell itself, if it meant saving Maya and sending the cartel a message that these truckers weren't easy prey. The night air felt eerily still as the clock neared 2 in the morning. Under a moonless sky, the team split into position around the cartel's warehouse. Reed sat behind the wheel of the fortified semi, engine idling at a safe distance. Dante rode shotgun, the M60 loaded and ready in the back. In the gloom, they waited for Cole's signal. Meanwhile, Cole and Dante had circled behind the warehouse on foot. They quietly dispatched a lone guard, a bored-looking cartel gunman taking a midnight smoke break. Dante slipped behind him, placed a gloved hand over his mouth, and jammed a knife into his rib cage. The guard collapsed without a sound. Cole snatched the man's radio, switching it to silent. Liam and Noah had climbed a slight bluff about 200 yards out, setting up a vantage point. The faint starlight was enough for Liam's night vision scope to detect movement atop a watchtower. He zeroed in on the silhouette. A single suppressed crack echoed, and the guard tumbled out of sight. Noah exhaled, fighting the adrenaline spike. "Good shot." Liam nodded, scanning for the next target. "We keep them blind as long as possible." Finally, Cole's voice crackled low over the radio. "Go, Reed, breach the gate." An electric hum filled the air as Reed gunned the engine, the semi's headlights bursting to life. He roared down a short dirt track leading to the warehouse fence. The chain link barrier, crowned with razor wire, never stood a chance. The steel grille on the truck crumpled the fence with a deafening screech, flinging metal and sparks everywhere. 2 nearby guards scrambled, only to get knocked aside by the truck's momentum. As the truck barreled in, cartel spotlights snapped on, illuminating the yard. Men shouted in Spanish, brandishing AK-47s and sidearms. A volley of bullets peppered the truck's armor, the clang of ricochets echoing in the still night. Dante braced himself in the rear, waiting for a clear line of fire. Then he let loose. The M60 roared, spitting out a hail of rounds that swept across a group of cartel enforcers rushing from the warehouse's side door. They scattered, some falling where they stood. The sheer shock of a machine gun on a vehicle was enough to sow chaos. Inside the base, an alarm klaxon blazed. Figures darted among crates and rusted shipping containers. Liam perched on the bluff, picked off anyone trying to climb the guard tower or move to a vantage point. In the confusion, Cole and Dante advanced deeper from the rear. A well-timed smoke grenade masked their approach, forcing cartel men to fire wildly into the swirling haze. Marco Delgado, roused from a makeshift office inside the warehouse, seized a radio. "Kill them. Secure the prisoner if you can. But if not, take her out." His voice reverberated with rage. He had already lost too much face at the truck stop. This was an insult he would not tolerate. The firefight intensified, bullets carving holes in corrugated steel walls, shards of glass raining down from shattered overhead lights. Reed maneuvered the truck in short bursts, ramming crates or barricades. Each collision shook the vehicle, but its armor held. Rounds continued to clank against the plating. Liam radioed in updates on enemy movements. 3 tangos heading to the east side. "Another 2 behind you. Reed, careful." "Roger that," Reed hissed, spinning the wheel. A crate exploded under the truck's forward momentum, scattering dust and debris. All the while, Cole inched closer to the warehouse interior. The entire operation hinged on finding Maya before reinforcements arrived or she was executed. Smoke stung his eyes, and the acrid smell of gunpowder filled his lungs. But he kept pushing forward, muzzle flash lighting his path in staccato bursts. They were inside the belly of the beast now, and the next few minutes would decide everyone's fate. Down a dim corridor deep within the warehouse complex, Cole and Dante discovered a reinforced door guarded by 2 more cartel soldiers. Gunfire and shouting echoed from outside. The guards, jittery, raised their rifles the moment Cole appeared. He moved with swift determination, launching himself at the first man before he could fully aim. They crashed into a pallets, sending boxes tumbling. Dante fired his shotgun, the boom reverberating off the walls. The second guard went down hard, blood spattering the concrete. The first guard tried to swing his own gun around, but Cole yanked a combat knife free, driving it into the assailant's torso. The man gasped, eyes wide, then collapsed, panting. Cole examined the door, locked. "We don't have time to pick it." Dante pulled out a small satchel of makeshift explosives they'd pieced together. "Stand back." Within seconds, he rigged a tiny charge at the door's lock. A muffled pop and flash later, the door swung open, hinges protesting. Inside, a single overhead light flicked. Maya sat tied to a chair, her cheek bruised, her wrists raw from tight bindings. She looked battered but defiantly upright. At the sight of Cole and Dante, her eyes flared with a mixture of relief and anger. "Took you long enough," she rasped, voice strained. Cole tore at the rope around her wrists, then moved to help her stand. Before he could say anything, Maya snatched a discarded pistol from the floor, presumably one that had fallen from the guard's belt. Without hesitation, she pivoted, firing at two cartel members who stumbled into the room, drawn by the commotion. Both men dropped, clutching their chests. Dante nearly laughed in surprise. "Damn, yerp," Maya exhaled, wiping sweat from her brow. "I'm not some damsel in distress. Now can we get out of here?" Cole gave a tight nod. "We have a truck waiting outside, but we need to cut through the chaos."
Stay close. As they rushed down the corridor, more gunfire erupted. Maya, battered but unbroken, kept pace, reloading the pistol with shaky hands. Yet behind those bruises a fire burned. She was furious at her capture, furious at how close the cartel had come to breaking her. She wouldn't let them get away with it. The warehouse reverberated with gunfire and frantic shouts. Reed's armored truck thundered through the yard outside. But inside these cramped corridors, the fighting was far more personal. That's when Marco Delgado appeared at the far end of a hallway, 5 cartel gunmen in tow. The flickering overhead lights revealed a gash above Marco's eyebrow, blood trickling down the side of his face. His rage seemed to blaze in the darkness. "Cole, mad," he spat, stepping forward as his men fanned out. "I should have killed you the last time." Cole nudged Maya behind him, though she refused to stay completely out of the line of fire. "Looks like you missed your chance," Cole replied, unflinching. Marco signaled, and one of his men fired a burst of bullets. Cole and Dante dove behind a toppled metal cabinet. Sparks flew as rounds ricocheted. Maya crouched beside them, pistol gripped tight. As the other gunman advanced, Cole counted the footstep. He yanked a flash grenade from his vest, a leftover from his days in the military. "Close your eyes," he muttered to Dante and Maya. Then he lobbed it into the open hallway. A brilliant flash lit the corridor, and a thunderous bang ruptured the air. The cartel gunmen reeled, blinded. Cole seized the opportunity, stepping out to deliver controlled bursts from his M4. 2 men collapsed instantly. Dante pumped a shotgun shell into a third, dropping him flat. Maya shot the 4th in the leg, sending him howling. That left Marco recovering faster than the rest. He lunged forward, brandishing a wickedly curved knife. He slashed at Cole's shoulder, drawing blood. With a grunt, Cole pivoted, attempting to disarm him, their eyes locked in a lethal dance. 2 predators in a final confrontation. Marco bashed Cole's wounded shoulder with an elbow. Cole gritted his teeth, refusing to yield. He threw a solid punch to Marco's jaw, snapping his head back. The knife clattered to the floor, but Marco raked his nails across Cole's face, trying to scramble free and grab a nearby handgun. Maya aimed her pistol, but a sudden shot from behind them whizzed overhead, forcing her to duck. Another cartel straggler had shown up, firing wildly. Cole had no choice but to shield Maya as they dove behind debris. Marco seized the moment. "This isn't over," he snarled, staggering, blood dripping from his split lip. He retreated down an intersecting corridor. He and his last henchman dashed off, presumably to regroup or find an exit. The scuffle ended in a deadlock, neither side claiming victory. Cole heaved a ragged breath, pressing a hand to his bleeding shoulder. "He's wounded," he muttered, "but not dead." Maya clenched her jaw. "I want to finish this." "We will," Cole promised. "But first, let's get you out of here alive." Fighting raged on in pockets outside. Through the open doorway, Cole glimpsed flames licking the edges of stacked crates. The entire compound had descended into chaos. Smoke billowed, churning with the stench of gunpowder. If they lingered, more cartel reinforcements could arrive any minute. "We can't stay," Cole told Maya. "Reed's out front with the truck." We'll punch out through the west side. Dante nodded, wiping sweat and grime from his forehead. Let's move. They wove through winding corridors, ducking occasional gunfire. Liam's voice crackled over the radio. I see you near the exit. Hostiles inbound from the left. Cole hurried, guiding Maya behind a stack of crates while Dante covered their flank. A short gunfight erupted, bullets thudding into walls and ricocheting off metal. Another swirl of smoke grenades kept the cartel from swarming. Finally, they burst into the open yard. Reed's armored truck roared into view, battered but still operational. Liam and Noah provided covering fire from a distant vantage. Bullets whizzed overhead, some clanging against the truck's armor. Cole yanked open a side hatch, helping Maya clamber in. Dante followed, slamming the door shut. Go, Cole barked. Reed floored the gas, plowing straight through a weakened section of fencing. The battered remains of the gate buckled, and the truck sped away from the collapsing cartel fortress. A few enforcers tried to give chase, but Liam's sniper rounds discouraged them. They escaped into the desert night, leaving flames and shattered vehicles behind. Though it was a small victory, the message was clear. These truckers weren't easy targets, and while the cartel's anger would undoubtedly burn hotter, they had proven their capacity to strike back. At the truck's stop, the drivers gathered under flickering floodlights, cheering as the raid party returned. Maya, bruised but alive, stepped out, meeting their applause with a determined nod. Yet Cole, nursing his injuries, felt only the calm before the storm. He knew Diego wouldn't let this go. Another, deadlier confrontation loomed on the horizon. Diego Delgado stood alone in a lavish office that overlooked the arid borderlands, his knuckles whitening on the edge of a mahogany desk. Reports from his lieutenants had confirmed the disastrous raid Cole Maddox and his truckers had orchestrated on the cartel's stronghold. Not only had they destroyed vital assets and stolen weaponry, but they had also left Marco, Diego's own son, critically wounded and seething with rage. While Marco survived, it was a humiliation Diego couldn't ignore. He had built his empire on fear and ruthless efficiency, believing no ragtag group of nobody truckers could ever stand in his way. Yet they had proven him wrong repeatedly. Now an unsettling realization took hold. If he continued delegating these offensives to lesser henchmen, the truckers might keep outsmarting them. The only solution was to lead the next attack personally. Striding across a floor tiled with imported marble, Diego glanced at the arsenal arrayed before him. Assault rifles, grenades, armor plating. He planned to mobilize a force larger than any he had sent before. The remainders of his cartel would be pulled from all corners of the region. A hand-picked squad of 30 seasoned gunmen, many with paramilitary backgrounds. He'd also commission at least 2 armored vehicles and a pair of rugged pickups armed with heavy machine guns in their bed. No more underestimating these truckers. He skimmed the intelligence from surviving scouts. They claimed the truck stop was well fortified, stockpiles of improvised mines, spiked traps and heavily modified but these defenses, in Diego's view, would crumble under the might of his newly assembled war party. A smirk twisted his lips as he imagined the destruction. He would leave the truck stop in smoking ruins, with Cole and every last one of his allies wiped off the desert floor. Cracking open a bottle of aged tequila, Diego poured himself a small glass, swirling it thoughtfully. He recalled the morning Marco stumbled back into their territory, half delirious with fever and pain from his injury. The fury on his son's face had been all-consuming, a testament to how deeply the truckers' raids had wounded the cartel's pride. That wound needed healing, through blood, through fire. He tilted the glass to his lips, the alcohol burning down his throat like raw determination. It's time we end this, he muttered. If Cole wants a war, I'll give him a war he'll never forget. Within hours, his men began assembling. Trucks rumbled into the staging area outside his estate, loaded with crates of ammunition, bulletproof vests, and heavy armament. As the final vehicles arrived, Diego stepped outside, scanning the grim faces of his loyal enforcers. Many had served him for years, out of devotion or raw fear. Others were new recruits, lured by promises of money and power. It didn't matter. What mattered was that they all prepared to fight. Stepping onto the tailgate of a black SUV, Diego addressed them in a low, resonant voice. We head to that truck stop and finish this tonight. No more half measures. No more letting these nobodies steal from us. hurt our people and walk free. We will annihilate them, claim that place, and restore the cartel's name in blood. A rumble of agreement spread through the crowd. Weapons clicked, magazines were checked, and engines revved. Soon, the convoy would snake its way across the desert, bristling with lethal intent. And by the end of the night, if everything went according to plan, Cole Maddox would be a memory, along with any dreams of freedom that foolish truck stop had dared to foster. Midnight draped the truck stop in shadows, broken only by a scattering of dim floodlights. The tension was palpable. After surviving multiple skirmishes and the rescue of Maya, the defenders had little doubt the cartel would strike again, bigger and deadlier. A sense of quiet dread hovered in the air as some men double-checked their firearms, while others tested the rigged traps one final time. On the northern horizon, the low roar of engines confirmed their worst fears. Diego's convoy spread out, approaching under the cover of darkness. They split into two main columns, one pressing straight toward the main gate, now heavily barricaded by lines of trucks, welded into a makeshift wall, while the second group looped around the back, planning to overwhelm the defenders with a pincer attack. Cole Maddox stood at the center of the defensive perimeter, scanning the black expanse with night vision binoculars. He glimpsed the glint of metal, the hulking shape of armored vehicles flanked by smaller trucks. Two pickups with heavy machine guns mounted on their beds roamed in the distance, searching for vantage points. A grim line etched itself into Cole's brow. This was it, the final showdown. All positions, stay alert, Cole said into his radio. They're coming in force. Stick to the plan. That plan was as elaborate as they could make it with the limited time and resources they had. 1. Layered defenses. Rows of semis formed an outer barrier, behind which they planted spike strips concealed under scraps of tarp. 2. Buried fuel drums rigged to explode at the flick of a remote, designed to hamper or even engulf an unsuspecting assault team in flames. 3. Rooftop sharpshooters. Liam Hayes and a handful of volunteers perched on makeshift towers, or the tops of trucks, each armed with rifles. 4. Mobile strike teams. Reed's armored truck waited behind a row of half-ruined vehicles, ready to surge forward at the right moment. Dante manned the mounted machine gun, scanning for high-value targets. 5. Maya's command. She oversaw the southwestern sector, ensuring no gap existed in their coverage. Seconds later, muzzle flashes bloomed in the distance, and the roar of machine gunfire tore through the quiet. Cartel gunmen advanced in the front, spraying bullets into the darkness, aiming to suppress any defender. Windshields shattered as random shots hit the barricaded trucks. One bullet ricocheted off a steel plate, skittering overhead with a metallic shriek. "Hold," Cole ordered, raising a fist. He wanted the cartel to creep closer, to feel overconfident. Let them advance onto the spike-laden ground. The first wave soon hit those traps. A black SUV accelerated, ramming toward the semis in an attempt to push them aside.
Instead, its front tires blew out on concealed spikes, shrieking as the rims ground against the pavement. The driver lost control, the SUV spun, colliding with the second vehicle behind it. A tangle of metal, curses, and smoke filled the air. Now, Cole shouted. He pressed a detonator, igniting one of the buried fuel traps. Flames whooshed up, forcing the nearest cartel enforcers to scatter. Some leaped for cover behind their own vehicles, others dove flat on their stomachs. From the southwestern perimeter, Maya's group opened fire with shotguns and hunting rifles. The staccato pop of gunfire mingled with frantic yells in Spanish. A few cartel gunmen tried returning fire, but found themselves pinned down by the defenders' crossfire. They had expected to barrel in, crush any flimsy defenses, and claim victory. Instead, they were wading through a lethal maze of cunning traps. In the midst of the chaos, an armored truck bristling with welded steel crawled forward. A cartel soldier in the turret unleashed long bursts from a heavy machine gun, chewing up the ground and riddling a stationary semi with holes. Sparks and fragments of metal pinged in all directions. Reed responded by maneuvering his own modified rig forward, plowing aside the half-burnt wreck of a smaller car. Dante let loose with their own machine gun, the muzzle flashing bright in the gloom. Bullets spat across the truck stop in arcs of brilliant tracers, some ricocheting off the impromptu fortress, others embedding into tires or fenders. Amid it all, figures darted between the parked rigs, the thick stench of burning rubber and gasoline saturating the night air. Noah Grayson crouched behind a trailer, glanced to where Cole was orchestrating a flank. He spotted Cole motioning for a small unit to push around the far side. "Let's go," Noah hissed to the driver next to him. Adrenaline surging, taking advantage of a momentary lull in the gunfire. They sprinted behind the row of trucks, heading for the cartel's exposed flank. If they could strike from the side, they might drive a wedge into the enemy's formation, sowing further confusion. Near the front gate, a battered sign reading "Welcome Travelers" flickered ironically. Half the neon tubes shattered. Every muzzle flash illuminated the battered trucks, and the glint of spent casings rattling on asphalt. The fighting had begun in earnest, and neither side was holding back. For Cole, for Maya, for all the defenders, there was no turning back from this cataclysmic final clash. Somewhere near the center of this maelstrom of smoke and gunfire, Marco Delgado limped through the chaos, his face contorted with pain from the wounds he still carried from their previous encounter. Despite his injuries, he refused to remain on the sidelines. Pride seethed through every movement. He scanned the sea of half-lit silhouettes, searching for Cole Maddox, the man he believed responsible for all his suffering and humiliations. He found Cole near a cluster of overturned crates, coordinating small squads. The moment Marco laid eyes on him, something within him snapped. "Cole Maddox," he roared, raising his voice above the racket of battle. "This time you won't escape me." Cole pivoted, spotting Marco's recognizable figure even amidst the swirling dust. Instead of immediate gunfire, Cole slung his rifle to the side. He had a combat knife strapped to his thigh, the same knife that had served him well in countless engagements. "Marco," Cole said curtly, stepping forward. Tension coiled in the air between them, overshadowing the bedlam around them. "If you're still walking, it means you're too stubborn to die," Marco sneered, brandishing a short-bladed machete. "I'm not the one who's going to die tonight. You cost me everything, my men, my pride. I'll make you pay in blood." Despite the firefight raging across the truck stop, an almost surreal bubble formed around them, as if every other sound dulled. Each man was hyper-focused on the other. Noah, from a distance, saw them and instinctively moved to help. But Cole held up a hand, signaling him to stay back. This was personal. Marco lunged first, hurtling forward with surprising speed for someone so grievously wounded. The machete hissed through the air, aiming for Cole's midsection. Cole twisted away, the blade coming within inches of his torso. He countered with a slash of his own knife, catching Marco's bicep and drawing blood. Marco hissed, ignoring the pain, pressing the assault. They grappled in the flickering half-light, boots grinding on cracked pavement. Marco swung again, forcing Cole to hop backward. Another slash. Cole ducked, then responded with a quick jab to Marco's side. Blood spattered onto the ground, but Marco refused to yield, a wild fervor in his eyes. "There's no place for you to run," Marco taunted through gritted teeth. "No more half-baked raids. This is your grave." Cole's gaze hard. "You never understood, did you?" he said, voice tight. "I'm not running. I'm standing where I choose to stand." He feinted left, forcing Marco to overcommit. The younger man lunged, hacking downward with the machete. Cole sidestepped, hooking his left arm around Marco. With a practiced pivot, he wrenched Marco's arm until the cartilage popped. A tortured scream echoed across the yard. Sweat ran down Cole's temple. The pain in his own battered body flared from old wounds, but he clamped down on it, focusing on the final blow. Marco, now kneeling, tried to pull a sidearm from a holster at his hip. Cole saw the motion out of the corner of his eye. Before Marco could even grip the handle, Cole thrust his knife forward, plunging the blade into Marco's chest, straight through to the heart. A strangled gasp was all Marco managed. His eyes widened, the machete dropping from his limp hand. Blood spread across his shirt, and he crumpled onto the asphalt, life draining swiftly from him. Cole inhaled shakily, stepping back to watch the cartel prince's last breath. "It ends here, Marco," he said quietly, the anger in his voice giving way to a grim finality. In that instant, Noah hurried over, scanning the perimeter for threats. The thunder of gunfire remained all around them, but for Cole, this confrontation felt like a moment outside time. Noah touched Cole's shoulder. "You okay?" Cole nodded stiffly, pulling his knife free with a wince. "Yeah," he murmured. "He won't bother us again." They had no time to dwell. The truck stop remained an active battlefield,
and Diego Delgado still roamed somewhere amid the chaos, thirsting for revenge. With Marco gone, an old vendetta was settled, but the final most dangerous opponent remained. Amid shrieking tires and the acrid haze of gunpowder, a tall, broad figure emerged from behind an armored SUV, Diego Delgado himself. He wore a grim smile that twisted his features into something inhuman. Over his shoulder hung a machine gun, belt-fed ammo draped like lethal jewelry. The instant he saw Marco's lifeless body sprawled on the asphalt, fury contorted his face. All illusions of control vanished, replaced by raw hatred. "No," Diego snarled, eyes brimming with rage. "No, you don't get to take my son from me." He turned the machine gun toward Cole, discharging a burst that tore chunks out of the ground. Cole dove behind a battered pickup, bullets whizzing overhead. Sparks ignited stray puddles of oil on the pavement. From a slight distance, Noah tried to provide covering fire, but Diego's men returned a volley of suppressive bullets. The situation threatened to spiral if Cole didn't act quickly. Summoning a breath, Cole sprinted to the side, weaving between abandoned vehicles. Another hail of bullets from Diego chewed through a shipping crate, sending splinters clattering in all directions. The muzzle flashes lit the darkness, revealing Diego's contorted expression, a father undone by grief and wrath. "You're not worth a quick death," Diego hissed, advancing steadily. "I'll take my time with you, and when you're gone I'll burn this truck stop to the ground." Despite the danger, Cole forced calm into his voice. "You've already lost everything. Diego, you just don't know it yet." Diego roared, emptying another burst that forced Cole to duck behind a half-burned semi. The desert wind whipped at the flames, intensifying the stench of scorching metal. On the far side of the yard, defenders still battled the cartel's remaining forces, but the epicenter of this war now condensed to these two men, locked in a lethal standoff. Tossing aside the machine gun once it ran dry, Diego grabbed a fresh magazine, realized he wouldn't have time to reload, and hurled the weapon at Cole in frustration. Then, with a snarl, he drew a large combat knife from a sheath strapped to his belt. "You want personal? Fine." Cole recognized the glint of madness in Diego's eyes. He tested the grip on his own sidearm, but the angle was poor. He needed to coax Diego into the trap-laden spot they'd prepared, the patch of ground soaked with hidden fuel. Even if the man was enraged, he remained If Cole rushed out into the open, he'd be cut down, so he circled back, luring Diego deeper with a furious war cry. Diego followed. He saw movement near a half-collapsed shipping container and let out a triumphant shout, stepping right into the perimeter Cole had set. Flicking a detonator switch in his pocket, Cole triggered the hidden mechanism. Fire erupted, shooting skyward in a savage whoosh. Diego reeled back, cursing as the conflagration licked at his clothes, searing the edges of his jacket. In the wavering glow of the flames, Cole rushed in, gun drawn, but the cartel boss was unstoppable in his rage. Sweeping aside the flames with an almost feral hiss, he lunged at Cole, swinging his knife in a frenzy. Cole fired 2 shots which grazed Diego's side, but didn't halt him. The momentum carried them into a savage grapple, fists and blades tangling under the flickering inferno. A savage blow from Diego's elbow hammered into Cole's ribs, knocking the air from his lungs. Cole responded by slamming the butt of his pistol into Diego's jaw. Both men stumbled, battered by the ferocity of the clash. "You took my son," Diego rasped, spitting blood. "I'll carve out your heart for that." Cole dodged another slash, but not fast enough to avoid a shallow cut across his forearm. Gritting his teeth, he twisted away, ramming a shoulder into Diego's chest. The cartel boss staggered into the flames, letting out a guttural roar of pain as his clothing caught fire. Despite the fresh burns, he pounced again. Cole disarmed when his pistol was knocked loose in the scuffle, reached for his own survival knife. The two men locked in a final struggle, each blade seeking the lethal opening. The roar of flames and the distant thunder of gunshots faded into the background, overshadowed by raw survival instincts. At last, Cole found his moment. Diego's footing slipped on the slick, oil-strewn ground. Cole lunged upward, driving his knife in a deadly arc that pierced Diego's chest, just above the heart. The cartel boss froze, eyes widening in stark disbelief. "Game over?" Cole muttered, voice rough with exhaustion. Diego let out a strangled breath, blood bubbling at his lips. He clutched at Cole's shoulders as though he might drag them both into the pit of flames, but his strength ebbed. He sank to his knees, the light in his eyes dimming. With an agonized grunt,
His body slumped forward, pinned by the blade. Fire crackled around them, casting dancing shadows on the lifeless form. For a moment, Cole could only stand there, panting, arms trembling with exertion. He'd done it. He'd slain the king, the father of Marco, the man who orchestrated so much terror. As life fled from Diego Delgado, so did the last pillar of the cartel's leadership. The war, at long last, was theirs to win. With Diego's defeat, the final vestiges of cartel resistance collapsed like a house of cards. Rumors spread rapidly among his men that their leader had been slain. Panic set in. Some frantically attempted to regroup, while others simply fled. A good portion of the attacking force peeled away, engines revving as they tore off into the desert night, unwilling to risk their lives for a dead boss. Only a few diehards kept firing sporadically, until local law enforcement, alerted by the extended gun battle, finally arrived in battered cruisers and unmarked vehicles. The truck stop was a scene of devastation. Smoke still rose from the burnt-out husks of cars and trucks.
Bullet casings littered the ground like metal confetti. Broken glass crunched underfoot, but the defenders stood tall, albeit exhausted, battered, and injured. Maya wiped soot from her cheeks, helping a stunned driver to his feet. Brock Turner, nursing a fresh bandage on his leg, waved off medical assistance with a weary grin. Reed leaned against the bullet-riddled side of the newly crowned hero truck, which had saved them all multiple times that night. Cole emerged from behind a swirl of smoke, his face streaked with grime and sweat. He clutched at a wound in his side. Though it didn't seem life-threatening, a hush fell among the defenders as they registered the significance of him walking alone. Diego was no more. The threat that had loomed over them for weeks, perhaps months, was gone. "Hold your positions," Cole ordered quietly, though the words carried a steely finality. "Don't chase them into the desert. We've done enough." Blue and red lights flickered along the highway approach as local police and a few federal agents slowly took in the sight. They had no love for the cartel and quickly saw the evidence of a one-sided fight still smoldering. Some of the law enforcement officers gave Cole and Maya a curt nod, acknowledging that the truck stop defenders had effectively neutralized a major criminal force. Though formal questions would come later, the immediate priority was triage for the wounded. Exhaustion mingled with relief as the truckers slowly lowered their weapons. They had won. The cost was high. Lives lost. Property destroyed. But they had stood against a seemingly unstoppable empire and prevailed. With Diego Delgado dead and his cartel in disarray, the truck stop remained standing, an unlikely fortress that had beaten back every attempt to claim it. Even in the face of ruin, the spirit of freedom still burned bright among those who defended it. The sun rose over a barren landscape once filled with cartel vehicles and angry gunfire. Now, the battered remains of the invading forces lay abandoned. Some cartel remnants had scattered into the desert, hoping to blend into distant territories or slip across the border. But their organization was effectively decapitated. With Diego and Marco both dead, there was no central figure to unify the survivors. News spread quickly. The cartel was finished. A handful of holdouts attempted to regroup in remote hideouts, but with no leader and no direction, they posed little threat. Meanwhile, local authorities seized the opportunity to raid various cartel safehouses, rounding up those too slow or too injured to flee. At the truck stop, the drivers who had survived became unwitting folk heroes, at least in the eyes of those living under the cartel's shadow. Maya, face still bruised but standing as tall as ever, assembled the ragtag group of truckers and workers at the main lot. Bullet holes riddled the diner walls, and the scent of charred metal lingered. But the people themselves brimmed with an odd sense of triumph. "We did it," she said, voice carrying over the hush. "We took back our home. This place is ours, and no one can take that away again." A warm murmur of agreement spread through the crowd. They were exhausted, wounded, and grieving lost friends, but an undercurrent of hope coursed through their ranks. Battered semis and work trucks lined the perimeter, evidence of both the battle and their improbable victory. Cole, sporting bandaged ribs and a tired smile, nodded. "We'll need to rebuild, but I promise you, we'll come out stronger than before." The drivers wasted no time. Within hours they formed cleanup crews. Some hauled away twisted scraps of metal, while others patched up holes in the building. Even the diner's neon sign got a temporary fix, though half the letters still flickered ominously. It stood as a testament to resilience. A few volunteers scoured the desert for abandoned weapons,
ensuring no stray ordnance would threaten travel. Day by day, the scars of war slowly faded beneath fresh coats of paint and new steel plating. In the days following the climactic battle, a deep camaraderie took root. The truck stop was no longer just a casual pit stop. It became a community bonded by shared adversity. Those who had once merely exchanged pleasantries over coffee now looked at each other like family. Reed Morgan, ever the tinkerer, busied himself repairing or upgrading surviving vehicles. Drivers from neighboring routes heard of his skill, and soon old acquaintances drifted in, offering supplies or spare parts to help the truck stop recover. Liam Hayes maintained a low profile, but kept tabs on any suspicious movements in the region. His hacked intel streams confirmed that the cartel's infrastructure had crumbled. A few splinter groups popped up, but none rivaled the old Delgado dynasty. Whenever rumors of new threats surfaced, Liam informed the group, ensuring they stayed one step ahead. Dante Cruz assumed an informal role in maintaining order around the parking lot. If any troublemakers drifted in thinking they could bully the truckers, they found themselves staring down a man who had faced cartels without blinking. Scuffles rarely lasted more than a stern warning or occasionally, a bruised ego. The sense of security at the truck stop grew with each passing day, attracting more travelers to rest in safety. In the evenings after the heat of the desert sun waned, the group sometimes gathered around salvage tables in the diner, talking quietly about the future. A battered old jukebox even crackled back to life under Noah Grayson's tinkering. It played scratchy tunes that, while hardly perfect, lent a comforting normalcy to the nights. And so, the truck stop transformed from a battlefield into a living memorial of victory and community. The men and women who stayed behind did so not out of fear, but out of a steadfast commitment to keep the spirit of freedom alive. With each day that passed, Cole Maddox and Maya Alvarez found themselves thrust into roles they hadn't anticipated. Their leadership in the battles naturally carried over into leadership in peacetime. Truckers looked to them for decisions on everything from watch rotations to supply run. And though they tried to delegate, no one could deny the sense of calm that spread when Cole spoke with quiet authority or when Maya offered a plan with her signature resolve. Their bond deepened as well. Through shared loss and triumph, they'd forged a trust that went beyond comrade in arms. Maya occasionally teased Cole about his stoic demeanor, and he quipped back about her stubbornness, but underneath the banter was genuine admiration. Rumors swirled that they might become more than partners in defending the truck stop, though neither confirmed nor denied such talk. Together, they ensured the truck stop remained a sanctuary. Each time a traveler pulled up, uncertain if the place was safe, they'd be greeted by this unlikely pair, former Navy SEAL turned trucker, and a resolute woman who had once navigated the edges of cartel politics. Their very presence radiated confidence, a silent statement. No one would claim this place by force again. In the dusk of another scorching day, Cole stood on the repaired diner porch, gazing out at the last trucks rolling in for the night. The sun dipped behind distant mesas, painting the sky in fiery oranges and purples. Scars of the recent war remained visible, the patched bullet holes, the scorched asphalt, but life went on. Maya stepped out, quietly joining him, their silhouettes framed against the fading light. He breathed in the warm desert air. This battle was over, but he knew peace was always fragile. Still, if evil rose again, he and these truckers would stand ready. Freedom was worth every fight. Thank you for staying with us until the end of this story. We'd love to hear from you. Share your thoughts in the comments below and let us know your favorite part. If you enjoyed the journey, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our channel for more captivating stories like this one. And don't miss out. Hit the notification bell so you're always updated on our latest content. Your support truly means the world to us. As dawn rose over the horizon, casting golden light across the damaged truck stop, the survivors felt a strange calm settling in. It wasn't peace yet, but it was a pause, a breath. In the diner, laughter slowly returned. Tentative but real. One by one, the defenders began sharing their stories. Some had been soldiers, others just drivers looking for quiet lives. But now, they were legends. Their bond forged not by blood, but by resolve. Their war was far from over, but in this moment, they had something rare: hope. Hope that no matter what came next, they wouldn't face it alone.